This
amazing
cinematic analysis is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here. Today we are talking World of Warcraft Dragonflight patch 10.2 Guardians of the Dream. We are talking the big bad of that patch and, let's be honest, the entire expansion. We are talking the Firelands and Sulfurous and Druids of the Flame and one big tasty old getting ready for the climactic battle montage. Because today we are talking the new Crown of Flame cinematic. And usual disclaimer, this is not a reaction video. I've already watched this like 100 times. If you haven't seen it, then this video is going to be a really awful way of doing so, because we're going to be stopping and starting and skipping bits and talking all over the top and just generally having a good old nerdy time, picking out the references and meanings that we may have missed on the first watch. If that sounds like your kind of thing, join us as we do a deep dive cinematic analysis of Crown of Flame and ask, did WoW finally do their expansion boss justice? Okay, go.
My brother believed he could control me. This rage inside my heart.
Straight off the bat, I'm going to say that I really like this cinematic because it's the right cinematic at the right time. And by that I mean, of all of the complaints about Dragonflight so far, the one that I agree with the most is probably that 10.1 lost a bit of momentum in terms of creating a sense of threat and urgency in the expansion. We had just released the Primal Incarnates, who are brilliant baddies and were incredibly menacing as they set their plans in motion on the Forbidden Reach in 10.07, but then the action of 10.1 in Zaralek Caverns and Abberus was explicitly described by Big Boss Man Iridikron himself out loud as being a distraction. And there's nothing wrong with a distraction patch. Ulduar, probably the greatest raid in Warcraft history, was a side story from the main plot of the expansion in Wrath. But the difference between Ulduar and Abberus is that in Wrath, we knew what we were being distracted from. We were fighting the Lich King, then, oh shit, did you know there's an old god over here? We definitely need to do something about that old god before we get back to defeating the Lich King again. In Abberus, we didn't yet know what the overall threat we were being distracted from actually was. Iridididi didn't explain his super objective until the end of Dawn of the Infinites, which is a shame because it is the best super objective in the history of WoW, if you ask me. I hate the Titans, so I'm going to mess up the World Soul to get their attention, and when they come to sort it out, I'm going to f**k them up. I'm just going to up the Titans. That's my aim. Fyrakk was awesome in the Zaralek campaign, but he didn't feel super important to the overall A-plot. He was, after all, a distraction. And the thing is, now we know that he is almost certainly the final boss. That stuff in 10.1 where he chows down on the Shadow Flame and enlists the Jarradin to get their forges up and running, and that all leads him to becoming the big bad of this particular expansion and attacking the World Tree. Knowing that now actually retroactively makes 10.1 a lot more meaningful and important and significant in the arc of the expansion than it seemed at the time. And in hindsight, I genuinely think Blizzard could have done 10.1 a huge favor by just telling us flat out in a blue post or an interview or something that Fyrakk was the final boss of the expansion. I'll go into a bit more detail about this as we go through, but I think it would have added significance to everything he touched in that patch and connected it in our heads to the main story in a way that I think it didn't really feel like as it was happening. Because at the time, I do think it felt like there was a lack of stakes and danger in that patch. And so what 10.2 needed more than anything else, I think, was to create and build on that sense of danger, raise those stakes, make it feel like some shit is about to go down. And I think it absolutely nails that for me. This entire cinematic is a getting ready for the final showdown montage. And we deserved a big getting ready for the final showdown montage. We've earned this. We open with this shot of the interior of Zaralek Caverns and the raised hammer of a Zakali blacksmith. Straight away, we are being shown that everything that happened in 10.1 was actually important. Fyrakk's waking of the elders, his deal with them, their gathering of blacksmithing materials in the Fyrakk assaults. It was all for this. And we get a proper old-fashioned WoW patch trailer narration too, over this kind of Gregorian-sounding droned chanting, which we soon realize isn't just part of the soundtrack, but is being made in scene by the Druids of the Flame as part of whatever forging ritual is being performed here. Since the Raphael fight in Baldur's Gate 3, I am basically obsessed with the idea of bosses singing their own theme tunes. This is probably as close as we're ever going to get to that in WoW, so I approve. And I mean it when I say this feels like a good old-fashioned WoW patch trailer, because the narration over montage style of it is really evocative to me of the Cataclysm Rise of the Zandalari trailer, or even the Gods of Zulaman from TBC. This time, of course, our narrator is Fyrakk, who began life in the game as the Chaos Goblin of the Incarnates, the stooge in a way, the loose cannon who the other two more senior-seeming primal dragons needed to babysit. And this cinematic is clearly intended to mark his evolution into terrifying baddie force in his own right. That first line, "My brother believed he could control me," straight away he is marking his territory as his own person, causing this trouble because he wants to, which is great and everything. I think there's a little dramatic irony at work here, where as viewers we can see that actually Fyrakk is doing exactly what a Ridicron wants him to. But the point is, Fyrakk believes it. And actually, I love how the whole first half of this speech feels like a prose poem, all about how he is, in his mind, subverting expectations of him.
My sister believed she could tame me. My fury will not be sated. The aspects believed they could imprison me. But my hatred cannot be contained.
My brother thought he could control me, but this rage inside my heart. My sister believed she could tame me, but my fury will not be sated. The aspects believed they could imprison me, but my hatred cannot be contained. And it's telling that in each case, the reason he gives that the other dragons, all his kin, have failed in their control or influence that they tried to exert over him is because of the innate primal qualities within him. His rage, his fury, his hate. Those qualities that we all kind of looked down on a bit, memed about. The reason we loved him, but in a kind of a mocking way, they are the reason he stands here now, the main character. And I love that for him. I love how we don't even see him in this scene until 15 seconds in. All the focus before that is on the forging of the axe. Now, of course, we know what this axe is. It's 10.2's legendary weapon that drops for literally everyone except druids, which... yeah, I know, but I do have to say, this cinematic has gone a long way on selling me on Fyrakk, the Dream Render. I can accept that if you are going after a massive tree, what better weapon than a massive flaming axe, you know? It's probably worth mentioning that the forging of a weapon is an image that all fantasy, but especially WoW, uses a lot. It's hard not to think of the jailer forging Anduin's runeblade in Shadowlands, but I think that what this cinematic is more consciously referencing is the hammering of the adamantine plates into Deathwing in the Cataclysm trailer. Like Fyrakk, he was maddened by the Shadow Flame, but whereas Deathwing was the weapon in many ways, actually the contrast in this cinematic is that it shows us a Fyrakk very much more thoughtful and in control than we ever would have thought possible before. He's got a plan, he's got a team that he's put together and leads himself. Dude's an absolute boss right now, as signified by his leveled up armor. Up until this point, his whole look has been encased in a bony insectoid carapace. Now he's got the full-on Ragnaros-inspired plate. Hold that thought. The change that Fyrakk has gone through this expansion in his role, status, the shadow flame, the gear, the new, more focused objectives is really cool. I love this forging ritual too. The Druids of the Flame serving a very specific purpose, summoning those runes on the floor, which you then see them work as conduits for with that slight jolt out of the body and channel to the blade of the axe, infusing them with the power of... well, what are those runes, actually? Big Axe Go Brr? Chris Metzen is back? Bind on Pickup? The Jailer planned this? I can't just look at some runes and not try and work out what they are, and I knew I could not make this video until I did, so I was up all night, it's no big deal. And they are not the Jailer's runes. They are not Dragon runes, or Titan runes, or Old God runes, or Molten Core runes. The answer is actually pretty obvious in hindsight. At least 2 of these runes are also on Sulfurus, the Hammer of Ragnaros. We're going to see in the story of 10.2 that Fyrakk's grand plan has a fair bit to do with the Firelands and the elemental lord of the Firelands, so this does make perfect sense. And as we get this big, important, indulgent close-up of the weapon that Fyrakk has spent half the expansion forging, we siege into a scene that shows us the intended target.
They know what is coming. That the unyielding flame draws closer, ever closer.
A Mirdrasil, the new world tree in the Emerald Dream. And if you haven't been on the 10.2 PTR, this is the first time you've seen the new world tree. More reminiscent of Nordrasil and Mount Hijal than any other, continuing that Cataclysm vibe that we've had throughout this expansion, really. And the shit is about to go down music starts. And we get the montage.
Even now, they cling to one another in the dark, lost in their dream.
The heroes preparing for the battle montage, which I think makes this such a great patch cinematic. The dark, fiery glow of Zaralek instantly contrasted with the breezy, colourful splendour of the Emerald Dream. The glowing, hard-shaped metal against the soft, natural flora of the World Tree. In the same way that the Lord of the Rings movies are always contrasting Mordor with the huge open vistas of New Zealand, what this does is it shows us that here is something worth protecting. And of course, all our faves are here, all the characters that we've been gathering and working with throughout the expansion, leading them to this point. Ysera and Chandris walk together as Alexstrasza and Nosdormu come swooping overhead. Presumably, as she looks up, Ysera is thinking, oh yeah, that reminds me, I should really tell Alex I'm back and maybe say hi, I don't know. And look, we said we wanted to raise the stakes, so here's the biggest stake of all, Abyssian, literally suiting up, getting ready to rumble. And Kalek reading a book, which I really hope is a Fyrakk boss strategy guide. Viranoth is well and truly part of the team now, going over battle plans with Marithra, and it's not even all aspects because Rathian and Sibelian are here, still at the heart of important events and decision making. And also Khadgar is, well, he's here as well, which is definitely an improvement on most of Dragonflight, I guess. Well done, Khadgar. Nice one. Great help. Oh wow, I love that color scheme of heritage armor. They should definitely put that in the game. I love that in the shot of Tyrande sharpening her glaive, her eyes are kept out of shot, which really gives a sense of extreme focus on her task. And also, and I mean this, thank you Blizzard for the shoulder shot too. It would be criminal to have Tyrande in a cinematic and not have a good shoulder shot. Blizz just making another few hundred girls realize that they're gay with this cinematic. And this being WoW with its rich cinematic history, when we see this shot of the red and bronze aspects swooping over Tyrande and her look back towards the camera to watch them fly, eyes wide and glowing, it's of course impossible not to think of the Wrath cinematic with Arthas's forces, though the setting could not be more different, and I don't think this is a meaningful callback. Rather, it's actually meant to tell us something about Tyrande. Like I say, we are introduced to her in this cinematic in ways that make her seem alone, her eyes out of shot, grimly focusing on her task. From behind, face obscured. And for the last 3 expansions, it has felt like Tyrande's battle has been a lonely one. The Alliance didn't come to her aid when Teldrassil burned. She went rogue, hunting Sylvanas by herself, all Shadowlands. Her husband is trapped in the afterlife, so this battle can even happen. Until now, the job of protecting a world tree, avenging a world tree, planting a new world tree, it has all been on her impossibly buff shoulders. This shot, her face turning in the direction of the camera as the dragons swoop overhead, just the faintest look of hope in her expression, is meant to show us that this time it's different. Tyrande isn't fighting this battle alone. She has a whole montage of Aspect and other dragons to help her out. It's also nice that the Fyrakk line that we hear over this shot is
lost in their dream.
This patch is the realization of her dream to make a new home for the Night Elves. This line also reminds us that she is currently without Malfurion in this fight, lost in the Shadowlands version of The Dream.
deceived by those who squandered our birthright.
The glowing golden titan light breaks through the branches of Yggdrasil like a new dawn as the aspects touch down. This nice moment between Alexstrasza and Virinoth is undermined by Fyrakk referring to us as those who squandered their birthright by becoming shitty titan dragons, or even worse, teaming up with the shitty titan dragons when you're lucky enough to have been born a badass primal incarnate. This is a really cool scene filled with hope and urgency and characters we know and like coming together for a scrap, which is brilliant. And then I love how Fyrakk just breaks this heartwarming scene by basically running his fingers down a blackboard. The scraping of his axe working like a record scratch to bring us back to hard reality, and the way he drags that axe is so petulant, I love it.
Traitors. All of them.
Imagine if you were this blacksmith. You just spent an entire patch cycle carefully making this thing, and then your boss is like, thanks, I'm gonna carry it like this. Instant regret of life choices right there. And if we hadn't already picked up on Fyrakk's complete rejection of his family and place in dragon life, he lays it out pretty explicitly here. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yo Tally, Fyrakk is always banging on about his fury, so why isn't he dual wielding? Looks like he's playing arms to me. And that is a good point, but there is a simple answer. He has to go single-minded fury because the alternative is Titan's grip, and you know how much he hates them.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Evie here yet again with yet another shout out to Squarespace, who are sponsoring this very video. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Evie, I know the deal. I know you're here to tell me about 2 or 3 Squarespace features in a fun yet informative way and sing their praises and give me a cool sign up link or whatever. I've got you sussed, okay? You're not wrong. However, as I was scrolling through the usual Squarespace features, looking through my favorites, the beautiful template library, the in-depth analytics, the easy web editor, you know, the classics, I came across this online features list, an exhaustive list of everything the Squarespace platform can do. I know what you're thinking. They couldn't possibly have listed everything you can do on there. As a video game completionist and achievement hunter, this struck joy and also fear deep in my soul. And look, they've only gone and done it. You've got your web builder, your templates, content, but then it's feature roulette, podcast reports, shipping labels, tax rates. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. Look at the size of my sidebar scroller. Where does it end? Oh, that's for you to find out and for me to also find out, I hope, one day. Dip your toes into a world of infinite possibilities with a free trial on Squarespace. And when you're ready to have your mind properly blown, go to squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel or use code Taliesin Evitel to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel.
What are you doing?
I'm 100%ing it.
You're 100%ing Squarespace.
Yeah, noob, cope.
So it falls to me to make them pay.
The climax of this entire scene is Fyrakk striking a pose that is basically that of an executioner about to see off Anne Boleyn or something, signifying his intentions for the tree and its inhabitants very clearly, before he cuts his way through reality and into the dream, which is definitely a rule of cool thing, but that's okay. Rule of cool is fine right here, I appreciate it. But there is a clear contrast here to Iridikron, who we all thought was going to be the final boss of this expansion. The last time we saw him, he disappeared into a portal. This is quite symbolic in the way that Fyrakk is stepping up to fill the void left by his brother's absence and take up the responsibility of expansion big bad, stepping into the fray, just like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Here's Fyrakk, indeed. And then we get our first real full shot of the new world tree.
Their suffering has just begun.
As as Fyrakk's foot stomps down in the foreground before his axe drops heavily by his side, literally slicing through our view of Yggdrasil in doing so. I love the way the fire spreads out from his feet, showing the destruction his mere presence in the Emerald Dream causes. This obviously brings to mind, you can't help it, Sylvanas regarding Teldrassil before burning that down. And with that in mind, this is a great final line too. Their suffering has just begun. Because if you're a Night Elf player, you're thinking, oh, I don't know, mate, we've been suffering quite a while at this point. But it just further hammers home Fyrakk's opinion that he has now risen above everything that came before. His brother and sisters, the aspects, even the suffering of the Night Elves at the hand of Sylvanas is nothing compared to what he is going to put them through. From comedy psycho to legitimate big bad in 2 major patches, the ascension of Fyrakk is complete. You could say he is ready to don the crown of flame. I said the title of the thing. And that's the cinematic. Honestly, my favorite thing is that it is a proper, oh yeah, we about to rumble cinematic. I think the expansion really needed that at this point, and I hope 10.2 captures that vibe of danger and invasion and defending against an attack throughout. I also think this cinematic does a lot to recontextualize events from 10.1 that seemed kind of insignificant and makes it seem really cool and important in hindsight. And seeing those things coming together in this patch and paying off with Fyrakk, as it definitely seems the final boss of the expansion, makes me like 10.1 more than I did at the time, which is cool, but also like a shame. I do genuinely think that with that in mind, it would have been better to go through that story knowing that Fyrakk was going to be the final boss, because then I would have liked that stuff as much as I do now, which is more. But what do you think? Does Crown of Flame get you suitably hyped for 10.2? Is Fyrakk the baddie we deserve? Was his journey to Big Bad a satisfying one? Is he even the Big Bad, or do you disagree and are currently bookmarking this page to come back and laugh at me in the comments when 10.3 is announced in a few days? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. We should have one more video coming out before BlizzCon, and then of course we will be streaming and making videos from BlizzCon talking about all of the WoW announcements. We have a cool dev interview lined up, and of course the weekly reset live from BlizzCon, filmed in front of, I think it's going to be 120 people this year, bigger and better than ever. So please join us for those. And if you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life. And if you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, thank you. Without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Dan Olsen. No, my name is Taliesin from me and everyone here. Until next time, cheerio.